So I think my experience of racism in the workplace has been pretty similar to my experience of racism in the world. Is it's not always overt. It's not as straightforward as someone calling you the N word or a tag or a graffiti. It's much more rooted in kind of microaggressions. But questions or comments about hair, people trying to touch your hair, even though mine's a little messed up because of this quarantine situation right now. Commentary about who's in the room and who's not in the room when you're having certain kind of conversations. So a lot of my experience around race and racism at the workplace is microaggressions, is invisibility, is people trying to kind of take that colorblind approach, instead of, to borrow from a TED Talk by Melody Hobson recently that I watched, instead of that color brave approach, where you're really acknowledging that people are coming from different backgrounds and you're not trying to sweep anything under the rug. In terms of how I've navigated that, it's varied at times. There are some times where comments or microaggressions are kind of so overt and so in the public discourse that I feel comfortable enough to speak up and be like, hey, what you just said wasn't okay, and here's why. And then there are other times where I'm the only person who looks like me in a room, and nobody else is speaking up or about it. So I just kind of keep my head down and keep grinding and mind my own business on it. I think, all of these answers I'm giving in sort of a pre-COVID, pre-George Floyd world, really. I think part of what I've experienced over the course of the last 3 to 4 weeks is a little bit of whiplash, where if I had tried to say Black Lives Matter in my workplace, and I'm coming from a workplace that really centers like Black and brown folks, working at Nike, that's a lot of our athlete rosters. We're doing commercials with Colin Kaepernick, but I certainly felt that if I said something along the lines of Black Lives Matter with no context in the workplace, that would not be welcomed. And there's been kind of a 360-degree shift. So I'm certainly in a space where I'm trying to navigate what that means now, and how I show up in the workplace more authentically as myself, to be honest, in a space where people's literacy, maybe not literacy, but awareness around issues of race, racism, white supremacy, systemic oppression has been elevated dramatically in the last 3 or 4 weeks. So prior to all that, I think I showed up a little bit differently than I feel like I will now. I think now it's a balance between kind of that self-care piece of conserving my energy and not doing extra labor, but also like realizing that in order to see a change in the way that race shows up in the workplace, I got to do a little work too, and have some uncomfortable moments and some uncomfortable conversations.